Tonight, inside the Calais jungle, a special STV report follows the Scots hoping to make a difference to people in the French refugee camp.
It's been really touching actually, but sad and depressing also.
Also tonight, Edinburgh councillors agree in principle to extend parking restrictions to Sundays. And in East Lothian, more parking problems with plans to create extra spaces on a North Berwick beach. And in sport, Hibs boss Alan Stubbs defends out-of-form Anthony Stokes and says Sunday's Cup final defeat will make them stronger. Good evening, I'm Laura Miller and this is the STV News at 6, live from Edinburgh. Some have described it as the worst humanitarian crisis since the Second World War. But for one group of Scottish doctors, scenes of hope were found in the Calais jungle. STV News travelled with the medical volunteers to one of Europe's largest refugee camps as they delivered medical aid, clothing and tents. They say they want to provide hope to the thousands of people living there while reminding people back home of their ongoing plight. Here's Amy Irons.
A landscape scarred by the devastation of foreign wars. The infamous Calais jungle is being ripped apart, tent by tent, shelter by shelter, by the French authorities. Amongst the charred remains are reminders of the near 6,000 people who call this camp home. I met two brothers from Afghanistan who've been left with nothing but each other and the clothes on their back.
Like I met my own tent over here. So they demolish it. I asked them, request them. I have so many things of mine inside that. So they come with a bulldozer and they demolish it. Like my clothes, everything.
You'll love actually together.
Saber and Sadiq have family in the UK, but due to strict border controls, their hopes of joining them look bleak. It's the same for thousands of refugees who've trekked from the likes of Syria, Sudan and Iraq.
Our government allowed 45 countries to be come in Afghanistan with the troops. And the 45 countries cannot defeat a small organization like a Taliban. They come with their own policies. They extract everything which Afghanistan have. So we all left in Afghanistan. We have no jobs. There was the security problems. So that's why we came to Europe. So we seek for the happiness of us. And my happiness is crossing to the border. And it's been 8 years that I couldn't reach my happiness.
The land you're seeing here used to be home to thousands of people, but after days of demolition, they've all been forced to move elsewhere. But here, where we're standing, is a stark reminder that children continue to be caught up in this crisis. Many of them and their mothers live in large shipping containers separated by fencing and fingerprint entry.
Do you want me to help?
Geraldine's a doctor from Paisley who's come to offer her support. She's one of 50 volunteers who've travelled from across Scotland to deliver aid.
It's very different from what I was expecting. There's definitely such a sense of community which we hadn't got an idea of from what we've seen in the TV before coming. There are plenty of people willing to help, but what actually nobody is doing is thinking, where are these people going to go? So there are people willing to help on a day-to-day basis, but not, from what I can see, to find any real solution, long-lasting.
I think the one thing that is quite amazing is that in amongst this chaos, there's these little communities, there's restaurants, there's barbers, there's a church, a mosque. People just doing whatever they can to try and get some sense of normality in amongst all this. And for most people, building some kind of neighbourhood seems like a good place to start. Tahir's from Pakistan. He set up a restaurant where he sleeps every night.
It's not a good life, yeah, it's not for the people, yeah. And but we have no other choice. We had to stay here if we want to go forward. If you don't want to go forward, you should go back then. But the people living in here, they have the aim to go forward. That's it.
And even the smallest of gestures can offer some comfort.
Thank you, very good, very nice.
Well, I wanted to do it and bring it here. Just for the people here, because I care about them.
Despite showing a wave of support, every volunteer wants to do more.
What we've done today is just a drop in the ocean, bringing donations down for people and helping where we can, but really, really devastated that there's not more that we could do, because the human tragedy around here is just awful.
Amy Irons, STV News, Cali.
And you can see more film footage and personal reports from Cali on the STV News app. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has been confronted by angry residents in her constituency of Govanhill in Glasgow, who say people are living in squalid conditions that are going from bad to worse. Glasgow City Council and the Scottish Government have put in nearly £10 million to buy out private properties that are decaying and overcrowded. Despite the efforts, locals say they are still living in conditions which have no place in the 21st century. Amy Irons reports.
I can only say, please help us. It's just like we are living like animals.
All these pictures and all these videos.
Oh, there's a rat! Oh my God. This is just disgusting.
You're only about 5 minutes away from Hampden Park. Is this really Glasgow? Is this really the 21st century?
A walk through Govanhill in 2016, a place where home has become hell, with scenes that revolt and disgust in equal measure.
The place is a shambles. It's stinking, it's manky, and we will continue campaigning. We are not going to stop.
I don't want to stay here and don't want to live here. Please give me some place where I want to go, because I don't want to stay here.
Amir took us inside his close to show us the dire conditions of this private tenement. Essential repairs by landlords are clearly ignored.
It's nearly 2 or 3 years this happened.
Amir's story isn't unique. In an area of overcrowding and high concentrations of private landlords, conditions like this have plagued Govanhill for years. The Scottish Government and Glasgow City Council have highlighted it as a high priority area and are ploughing in nearly £10 million into a scheme which aims to buy out these properties and get them into some kind of control. But the problem is so big that local campaigners here say it's not enough and confronted the First Minister while she was in her own constituency last weekend.
I know that there's elderly people and hundreds of families living in a ghetto where there's infestations of rat, bed lice, cockroaches and vermin. And I take it you've seen the videos of the back courts. Have you ever done a selfie in the back courts?
Yeah, I've raised the issue to the back courts repeatedly. You know what you want to come to my surgery anytime.
Well, you know, I take the view that it's less productive to talk about who's responsible and more productive to talk about how me as MSP, the local councillors, the Scottish Government, the Council, the police, different agencies work together to resolve these problems, and that's what I will continue to be focused on.
STV News showed our footage to the director of Shelter Scotland.
These are unbelievable, to think that people are living in these conditions in 21st century Scotland. Everything about that is wrong.
For all agencies involved, getting Govanhill out of this dire situation is a complex problem which will take time. But for some residents here, it already feels like a life sentence. Amy Irons, STV News.
Well, like Scotland, Gibraltar voted overwhelmingly to remain in the EU. The First Minister is already in talks with the territory, trying to strike a deal to argue for retained membership. Those living on the peninsula say the link with Europe is vital for their economy and livelihoods. From Gibraltar, Amy Irons has this special report.
Gibraltar's vote to remain within the EU was as strong as the rock on which this territory stands. 95% of voters chose to stay, and now the Chief Minister has revealed he's been in talks with First Minister Nicola Sturgeon over a potential deal to remain, which could see England and Wales leaving the EU, with pro-European nations and territories sticking with the status quo. Here in Gibraltar, it's very much like Little Britain, but walk down any of the streets and you can hear a variety of different languages and accents. Being an EU member, of course, has benefited this territory through its turbulent relationship with neighbouring Spain. And everyone I've spoken to seems determined that some kind of arrangement has come to see them maintain their place within the EU.
I would love if there was a deal with Scotland and Northern Ireland. All the sections have voted to remain. We're staying in the United Kingdom. It is Wales and England that are leaving the United Kingdom.
I am aware of the talks that have been given with, Gibraltar and Scotland and Northern Ireland. But I mean, it's a shame, it's a big shame, because we've fought so long to remain British that it's having to get to this point.
There's all kind of nationalities here, but you'd think it was only one nationality, if you know what I mean, because everybody kind of speaks to each other sort of thing, and maybe they can get some sort of deal going business-wise between Scotland and Gibraltar.
We can't really go it alone without the UK, for us personally, I don't think, but I think if we could sort something out with Scotland and Ireland, then we could maybe get rid of England.
Reverend Ewan McLean is from the Western Isles. 7 years ago, he moved from Glasgow to the Rock and says the EU is a solid, unifying force in this part of the world.
You can see out stained glass windows. I'm a Scot. I'm living in Gibraltar. I've certainly enjoyed the opportunity of coming to live here, to work here, to be part of a very different community, that a solution is found for Gibraltar to remain part of the EU, and maybe that will require us to have some type of agreement with Scotland, and that of course will be very interesting.
While we might be thousands of miles away, the view here mirrors the general view of Scots that when it comes to Europe, we're better in this together. Amy Irons, STV News, Gibraltar.
Finally tonight, a 14-year-old Scottish schoolboy is leaping his way into the world of parkour. Robbie Griffiths, who featured in last year's Commonwealth Youth Circus, has been a daredevil since the age of 10. And with hundreds of thousands of hits on YouTube, he's now attracting worldwide attention. Amy Irons reports.
Just there's no rules, you can do it your own style, your own way. It's this movement, you do whatever you want.
He might only be 14, but Robbie Griffith can do more than most people twice his age. The schoolboy spends every waking hour jumping and flipping round his hometown of Coatbridge as he quickly becomes one of the world's best young parkour athletes.
There was flyers handed out in my primary school from the coach that I usually train with just now. He held classes in a high school, so me and my friends went along to them and really just stuck at them for a good couple of years. My friends stopped going, but I just kept going. I didn't really like football and the kind of usual stuff that we play, but I don't know, I always loved climbing and rock climbing, trees, stuff like that, urban sports.
Nicknamed Wee Beastie, Robbie has travelled across the globe and has now broken into the worlds of fashion and film. He recently starred in an ad campaign for designer Paul Smith and has been signed to JLM Urban Sports, a management company that supplies stuntmen for Hollywood blockbusters, including James Bond and Star Wars.
Recent YouTube video got, I think, 116,000, which is the highest it's ever been. I think the highest before that was about 40 to 50,000, so it just spiralled.
Robbie just came to one of my classes one day and was exceptional, and I said, this kid, he picks up stuff so quick and he doesn't have to try it twice. From the minute I met him, he just had such a good understanding of how his body worked, and I wanted that, and I didn't have that at his age, so straight away I knew there was something unique about Robbie.
Robbie is no doubt tipped for the top, but he's happy to take it one giant step or leap at a time. Amy Irons, STV News.